I think what you can build on is this war mentality at home, like making teams pay when they come to Ericsson Stadium. Never a forward pass that one down the right side for Cobbo when he scored. That's momentum. I thought they were unlucky, but bad luck. We've had enough of those calls at the Warriors. What I'm saying is lock them up. Like, stop mucking around when you've got talent like that, because you're going to lose it. You've got to string wins together and you go on a run. And of course the Warriors is coming up in 5 weeks when the Origin is here, and if they get a couple of wins before the Origin and then can string them together through those, I think they make the 8.
DSPN, the Devlin Sports Podcast Network.
Big League Tuesday. I'm Tony Kemp, back with us again. Former Warriors coach, 25 tests for the Kiwis and played his pro league in both hemispheres. I got 6 quick questions to start with because it's 6 again. Yes or no answers. On the evidence so far, 6 games played, are the Warriors making the 8?
Very close.
Could you see the Bulldogs winning it all?
No.
Is that Dolphins loss a blip for the Storm, or does it say a whole lot more?
Well, yeah, there's a question mark against anyone's defence at 40 points.
Penrith win for just the second time all season. Are they making the 8?
Mate, the scary thing is about the teams coming up from the bottom.
Okay. Dolphins started 0-4, Cowboys started 0-3. Both teams are now on 3-game winning streaks. Are either of those going to make it?
That's what I'm talking about.
That's what you're talking about.
You know, it's a tight comp.
Your old mob, the Knights, have lost their last 4. Do you give them a hope in hell on Friday?
First coach sacked.
Yeah? Are you gone?
Gone.
All right, let's kick it off then with what we saw on Saturday night and watch this game. Of course, I think most of us did, sitting in front of the telly there. I thought the Warriors deserved to win that game, Tony, and I thought the most impressive thing, and I started the show by saying this, is in this competition as well, you know, I don't have to explain this to you or probably anyone. To me, it's all about your bounce back. What happens the game after you lose or have a shocker? You need to get back on the horse straight away. Raiders was a terrible performance. The next game they played, which is a week or two later, they beat Manly, won 3 in a row. Storm was a terrible performance. Very next game, beat the Broncos. That says everything to me.
It does, Marty, and it raises a couple of questions. The first thing is the bounce back, like you said. So they come on the back of a loss. They give 7 days to correct it and go out and they beat a couple of good teams, Manly and the Broncos. I thought the game on Saturday night was really good, especially no Nickel Clockstart and, of course, no
Fisher Harris.
And Fisher Harris.
No RTS, no Dallin and Rocco Berry. There are 5 players, 5 first choice players out of that team.
Yeah, and of course you take out Jazz, you take out Sean Johnson, you know, and there's a few others that have gone as well in that seniority, and you get. But for me, there's a couple of answers to your question there. The first thing, they've moved on from Sean Johnson. And I think that's what people really need to look at. You know, maybe when Sean was in the side, that there was a lot of people sitting back and waiting for Sean to do things because he was that type of player. Now it looks like seven weeks into the competition, and you've got to say on the back of those last 3 wins that they've all stepped up to the plate. And not having those senior players that we named means that they've all got to put in an extra effort. They talked about the centre on the weekend. For instance, be playing out there on the right edge.
Cable playing,
not actually being able to hold his own. And that pass that he gave back in the Shaw Metcalf was absolutely unbelievable.
The look in his eyes as he was running towards that line was just sheer will, wasn't it?
And he should have passed it earlier, but he got there in the end. And Luke Metcalf kicking that goal, what a welcome back for Reece Walsh, you know, kicking that ball dead. And I know you've got to take the luck when it comes your way. There was, you know, never a forward pass that one down the right side for Cobbo when he scored. That's momentum. They thought they were unlucky, but bad luck. We've had enough of those calls at the Warriors, and they've hung in there and got them in the end. And on the back of that, and the way that the competition is going, you've got to say that, you know, the competition, we spoke about this at the beginning of the year, was that the competition is set up for the Warriors this year to do really well. It's a soft draw. You know, and they're winning the games that they should be. Is any draw a
soft draw?
Well, I think when you're watching efforts like that, you know, you've got confidence in that the Warriors are going to show up every week and play to the best of their ability and get sides. You know, who would have thought, man for man, if you put that. I remember Alec McMahon when he was coaching me at the Knights. One day he put up on a whiteboard, he said, man for man, look across this team, we should never beat him. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I think I was talking about Manly at the time, and, you know, it was Michael O'Connor's and the Iro brothers and, you know, Martin, and the guy,
Big Bella,
Marty Bella and the likes, and Jeff Tuvey and stuff like that, and we went out and beat him. You know, so I think when you're looking at it like that, you're getting that effort across the board from the Warriors in a competition that you look at Melbourne. Who would have thought Melbourne getting beat by the Dolphins?
Well, no, conceding 40-0 at one, 40 points unanswered at one stage.
But you're looking at the competition, and you're going, well, where's the abnormality here? And it's at the bottom of the competition. And Penrith showed you that on the weekend where they get 40, and you go, well, when they start to kick, because I said this to you last year, Marty. When you're in the competition, what you've got to do is you've got to string wins together and you go on a run.
Yep.
And of course, the Warriors is coming up in 5 weeks when the Origin is here. And if they get a couple of wins before the Origin and then can string them together through those, if they get through that in that sequence, I think they make the 8.
Okay, so much to unpack there. Let's just go back to that performance, though. You're up against a forward pack with a couple of Origin props. Payne Haas is probably on his day the best player in the world, and he takes 4 to bring him down. Carrigan, a great player as well. And yet, this is a young forward pack that fronted up against those guys, reputation and everything like that, without your man Fisher Harris, who's obviously the talisman of the team. I mean, Barnett and him. But so what does that tell you for a start about what Andrew Webster's able to do to those players?
I had a good think about that question over the weekend, and I think what you can build on is this war mentality at home, like making teams pay when they come to Ericsson Stadium, to Mount Smart Stadium. Still calling it Ericsson.
That's old school. Yeah, that is there, right there.
But when you get those young kids, like we let Katoa go, they should have kept him. He's gone on. He got Player of the Year for Melbourne last year on the NRL Back Row of the Year, and yet here we've got this young boy at 19 doing things that, like 80-metre runaway. He stepped through 3 blokes like they weren't there on Saturday night. And when you're looking at it, when the time's right, he will be moved to that left edge, and he will be an absolute star. So
okay, so just to interrupt you. Okay, so when you've got him and you've got Leka, now this is the key to the Warriors. We've seen this over the years. These young boys come into the team, they play a barnstorming game, they have a cameo here, and then they don't for the next 4 games, and then you don't see them, and then maybe next year you see them a little bit, and then they get lost. How do you keep that kind of form, keep them alive playing like that consistently now?
Well, you don't have to worry about him because he's 19. He's got no worries in the world. There's that conversation that came out in Vegas, he couldn't even get out and buy himself a feed. You know what I mean? What I'm saying is lock him up. Like, stop mucking around when you've got talent like that, because you're going to lose it. Because every other coach in the NRL has watched that try and the last 2 that he scored and gone, mate, he's our player. So, this is the RTS story when the Warriors thought they had him locked up at the 2010 New Zealand Schoolboy Tournament. We've got him, the Warriors said, and who should sneak in the back door but the Sydney Roosters and offer him 5 times what they were going to pay him, I think it was.
Wow.
And this is where the NRL are going to go to. There'll be a club there that will bank on a big contract for him, which you'd say he was never worth that. All right. And at the end of the day, when he goes and starts winning competitions for another club, which is what they do, it's actually a bargain, just like Roger.
Okay. So also just deconstructing that game then, because the Warriors, I thought, should have had that in the bag. Just if Luke had his kicking boots on, it wouldn't have been such a stressful end. But they let 2 tries in at the end. Whether you get lucky or not, I mean, Walsh made a terrible mistake, kicked it dead, and a 50-metre penalty was brilliant. But again, what impressed you the most about that? Was it the ability to just, again, once Golden Point come around, to reconfigure the mind and go, because they must have been feeling so disappointed at that stage, to let that second try, and Reynolds kicked it, it goes to 18-all. At that stage, you could feel the air almost coming out of the tyres, but it didn't.
Yeah, and we've had enough of those years, haven't we, since 2013, where they've gone to that position and they've lost that game. And then the first time it comes up in 2025, and the young halfback who stepped in some pretty big boots, I'm not just talking about the one SJ, there's 2 of them, it's Stacey Jones and Sean Johnson, and he's got up, and you would have thought, well, that's the play. Like, that is the big play that you dream about, that you talk about, that you want, that you're talking as a kid playing in the backyard. I'm stepping up, the full-time Hooter's gone, I'm kicking a goal to win a game from halfway. So everyone's, apple was in their mouth, and basically gurgling on it to see whether or not he could kick, because he had a shocker that night with the boot. And he steps up and he kicks it. The confidence that they can get from that, I think, is more about the team feeling confident about believing in themselves that we can get to that spot and win that game, and especially a big one like that with a full crowd, full stadium, and this is where I think they can build that war mentality and say, right, you want to come here, right? You want to be the player that everyone wants to play alongside, and you make sure that they go away knowing that they've been in a hell of a game, and that's what the Broncos will do. I don't know if you've seen the footage of Maguire and Reynolds having a go at the back end of the game, but it's the theatre. It's like, man for man, we should have had this. How did we lose it?
Yeah.
And the Warriors going, well, you come here, you're going to pay.
Losing 5 players as well, 5 guys that if Andrew Webster had have had available for selection, you would have thought would have been in that first 13, not just the 17, and the 13, those 5 names we talked about, right? Dallin on one wing and Roger playing, obviously, and Fisher Harris up front. So what is that also telling you about a squad and that next man up mentality, the ability to cope with the injuries? Because you mentioned this last week as well. You said, wait 10 weeks, 15 weeks. What's the injury toll going to be? So what does this tell you about the club?
We did this at the beginning of the year. Remember when we looked at the squad and the makeup of the top 30 and the depth that a squad has and how they perform when they get key players out. You look at Melbourne with Harry Grant pulling out on the captain's run. Just goes to show you that they lost that leadership from Harry Grant when he was out there, because he does do a hell of a lot of tidying up, not just in the middle of the park, but he's often doing getting across the field to make last-ditch tackles. And the Warriors have got this, I think, momentum going. The New South Wales Cup is sitting top of the table. The Flegg and the Matthews are in the finals. And then the Warriors are sitting inside the 8. I think they're sitting 6 of them.
Fourth, mate.
Fourth at the
top
moment.
4.
So, it's a club at the moment that has got some belief. There's a winning culture, and it's like anything. You get used to losing just as easy as you get used to winning. And my hope for the Warriors going into the next 5 weeks is to get to the Origin on a bit of a roll. When they get to Origin, is to really kick on and secure themselves inside that 8, pushing for a top 4. Can they do that? When you look at the draw, Marty.
I've already banked the Newcastle result. That's why I said that too. I've already banked that result. I watched the night. I can't see the Knights winning that game.
It's the teams that are coming. I'm not really worried about the teams at the top. All right,
that's right. You keep saying the ones.
It's the teams that are down the bottom. Look at Mitchell Moses, the way that he brings Parramatta against the West Tigers.
Well, there was a desperation about Parramatta last night. When I was watching that game, I was thinking, this team has won 1 game all season. Look at the way they're playing. They were huddled together. They were yelling at each other. They were geeing each other up the whole game. It was almost like they won that. They actually got to the finals or something. It was almost like week 23. Yeah.
So it does look like a bit more of an even comp. Look at the Dragons, the way they're playing. But then again, you look at their signings. They've had some decent signings in their side. They've got some speed across the board. You look at the Cowboys, can they kick on?
Well, this is it. We get them in a couple of weeks. The Dolphins lost their first 4 games and have won the last 3 and beaten Penrith and beaten Melbourne during that time.
And you've got the Dolphins sitting below. You've got Penrith. I guarantee you Penrith are going to go on a run. All right.
Well, they're going to make the 8. I don't think anyone's stupid enough to think. I don't know whether they're top 4 or not. But that's probably silly saying that. But they are going to be in the 8. The other thing about the Warriors, mate, is that last year when you look at the 9 wins and 1 draw, so many of those games were frustrating. They were narrow losses, right? They were within a score, 6 points, maybe 7 points, maybe 8 points. So far, the Roosters result was an 8-point win. Tigers' win was a penalty for Luke Metcalf, 40 metres, difficult kick, and got a narrow win. This one's a narrow win. You turn half of those losses last year into narrow wins, and all of a sudden 9 goes to 12. And then you only have to win 13 or 14 games to make that. You see where I'm going with that?
Well, yeah, and that's what I'm trying to say is that what you do is you get a bit of confidence in your mate. Okay, you get a bit of confidence in the structure and what's actually happening, and it builds and breeds that winning culture. And you'll get through them in those tight situations. The game against Melbourne, the game against
Raiders?
The Raiders, when they get towed up like that, you're written off. It's like, how do you bounce back from that?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
They've shown both times, we've got a bit of belief here on the back of coming home. That's what I'm saying. Sure. They come back home.
Yeah.
This is where their draw's set up, and they're turning this place into a bit of a fortress. Now, they sold out every home game last year. They need to do that again this year, and the players continually, if you can get all your home games, you're in the 8.
Yeah, right. Okay? Then you have to win a couple on the road.
But you've got to get a couple on the road too, and that's where you get the belief from.
Well, last year, mate, they got beaten. I think they had 66 points on by the Titans, then turned around and beat Brisbane the next week as well. So they're capable of doing that. So, again, let's look at what didn't go well, because when you're 18-6 up to concede 2 late tries isn't good. It's not a perfect performance, and I don't think that at any stage anyone connected with that club, the playing staff or the coaches, are going to say they put in a perfect performance yet. So is that also a real positive, that there's so much more to come?
I think not letting in the late 2 tries. I think the biggest problem was the first 3 minutes where they let that easy try in through the dummy half.
Right.
And it works for you both ways. How many times have you seen a side go in the first 3 minutes and then they can't kick on?
Yeah, well, that's what happened to Brisbane. Yeah, they actually didn't play that play
again. And a lot
of
coaches will talk about that. I'm always worried when the opposition score, when we score a try so easily in the first 3 minutes, it tends to go, man, it's happened so easy, which it was. He just ran through the defensive line, Parks, and put it under the goalpost. And then the next minute they switch off and they're down by 18 points. You know what I mean? So I think that's more of a concern as the start, not the way that they dug in and they finished the game, because they got the 2 points in the end. And that's, no one worries about if you've won the first half, if you've won the second half. It's whether or not you've won the game. And the Warriors were meant to nail the game. All right, and that wasn't just nailing the game. Like, again, it was the theatre, Marty. It was the hooter had gone. No one had walked out, and he hadn't been kicking well all night.
No,
and
he missed one field goal attempt, which he should have got. He could have basically spattered over, but also again for him to actually do that again after the Tigers. Now he's got another win. So, do you keep that same combination again? You got Tanner Boyd playing, who's actually sitting there bubbling away.
Well, they're talking about the Cowboys wanting Tanner. Like Tanner, I don't think he changed the halves. Like, I think, you have a look at the defence. We've also known that Tavita can tackle. You know what I mean? Like the way he cleaned up Reynolds.
Yeah, that was awesome
on Saturday night was it was poetry. Just his time and his footwork and the way that he put that. But he's been doing that all year. Like that left edge that he's defending on, he's stinging people in defence. And that's real. Again, a real bonus when your forwards are looking out at your edge player and they're running into Tavita and he's giving people absolute hiding. Mm-hmm. So I don't think you're changing too much around that. The question this week is, do they leave Taupiki at fullback? So when Chance comes back into the side, do they move Chance? Because he was looking okay again.
Whereas he was totally out of his depth against Melbourne.
But from a coach's perspective, he doesn't make a hell of a lot of changes. Do you know what I mean?
He keeps that winning side?
He keeps the boys that he has faith in.
Right.
He'll bring Chance back in. He'll bring Roger back in. He'll move Fisher Harris back in. And he's just got this nucleus of young blokes. I think that's been the biggest eye-opener for me this year is how well the young blokes have come on. Because in the losses, the best players have been the young blokes.
All right, let's wrap it up with the Dogs then, who I thought put in their best performance as well over the weekend. They were mighty, weren't they? And they got those 2 key players back, and they've won without them, but they blanked it. Again, that defence of that team is a lesson, isn't it?
With Phil Gould, who's been there and done that, okay? He's been there with Penrith, with the Bulldogs, as a player and a coach, and knows what it takes to win competitions. And everyone will talk about 40 points, but it's not that wins you the comp, it's defence.
It's the defence, yeah.
And it'll be a hell of a game. It'll be a hell of a game up against the Doggies, especially knowing the history between Gould and the Warriors. You've got a couple of Warriors coming back, to play against the old club, and then you've got the Warriors on the back of it going, well, this is their motivation. They're top of the table.
Yeah.
We get this.
You've got to lose sometime, eh?
And you've got to think about, again, when you're talking confidence, we can go and beat them. We basically could beat anyone. And then you start to lead into that origin period going, well, if we beat them, we're going to let ourselves down if we lose to a lesser side. So for a lot of reasons, it's a really big game for the Warriors. They're on a roll. The Dogs.
Yeah. 6-0, mate.
The Dogs are on a roll. Can they keep it up? Like, man, you got to think that the wheels are going to fall off eventually. Let's hope it's against the Warriors.
DSPN.